On this episode of the Violent Professional Podcast, I sit down with Jared Reston, current SWAT team member and owner of Reston Group Critical Solutions. We talk about one of the events that he's most well known for, his thoughts on current events within the law enforcement community, and his company, Reston Group Critical Solutions. If you like this episode, please leave a comment below after the episode is over.
This is the Violent Professional Podcast brought to you by AriesClothing.com.
Oh man, we finally got you on to the podcast here. I've been waiting to get you on specifically because for those of you who don't know, this is Jared Reston, and he was our first Death Cheetah Award recipient. So we were excited to have him on. We just had to have a certain amount of time to get him here. So glad to have you on, bud.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we were going to talk about have you talk about your background as well as the event that we awarded you the Death Cheetah Award. It was for a specific event. We wanted to have you talk about that a little bit and then go on from there.
All right. Yeah. So I was working off duty at in a mall here in Jacksonville, Florida. We got notified of some shoplifters. Loss prevention went to stop the shoplifters. One of them fought the loss prevention. We went out to help during that. One of them took off running. Me and my partner gave chase. I ended up attempting to deploy my taser on the suspect. The taser malfunction didn't work. Had to go hands-on with him. Once going hands-on with him, we got into a brief physical fight, which then shortly turned into a gunfight where he shot me with a Glock 21, 45 caliber. The first one hit me dead center of my jaw, went through my jaw, exited out my neck. Then I took 3 to the body armor, 1 through the left thigh just above the knee, exited out high thigh, 1 in my right buttock, and then like a graze of my right elbow, and I was able to return fire, killing him.
Yeah, that's pretty worthy of the Death Cheetah Award, I'd say.
Yeah. That's how close were you when you guys were like engaging with your pistols?
It went from contact to 10 yards back to contact because I think he thought he killed me. And then when I sat up and started engaging him back, he started walking away from me. When I first realized we were in a gunfight, he was standing over top of me because it kind of happened like in a dry retention pond.
Yeah.
So he was like up the bank a little bit, like 4 or 5 feet, and aiming down on me. And then, like as I'm shaking off the cobwebs and stuff, he's walking away. And every time I moved, he would shoot back at me. But I think he thought he killed me or at least incapacitated me, and then he was just going to get away. And that was just the wrong decision.
And at that point, Jared, had you put any rounds? Had you even sent any rounds in his direction, or?
No.
Okay.
We were still when I got shot, I never saw the gun, or I thought I was punched. It felt like, just getting blindsided with a big hit. It didn't hurt really bad. It didn't. I didn't hear the noise. I can't say I didn't see the flash because, like when you get punched in the face, you kind of see that flash.
Yeah, that's kind of all you see.
So, I don't know if it was muzzle flash or getting shot in the face with a 45, but so there was a little bit of a flash, and I started falling down and rolling down that embankment. And before I came to rest, in my head I was thinking, "Get up, Jared, get up." He caught you with a good punch. Get up, get up, get up.
So at that point, you hadn't even kind of made that conclusion of, "Hey, I'm at deadly force here. He's shooting me with a gun." Okay.
Right. I thought he just hit me. And I was kind of waiting for him to jump on. I thought he, hit me with a good punch, and then he's going to be on top of you soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my thing was just shake it off, get to your feet, get to your feet. He's going to be on you soon.
What was he? He had stolen merchandise, or he had attempted to steal it?
No, he stole a pair of jeans.
Okay.
Damn.
He had 2 pair of pants on.
That's what they do. That or they take off shoes and they just put new shoes on and put their old shoes in a box and just walk out with new shoes. It's so dumb. It literally is.
Fucking idiot.
What year was that, Jared?
2008.
2008. So I mean, that was before my time in law enforcement. I was in the Army then, but what was the climate like there after that happened? I know obviously when there's officer involved shootings nowadays, even when it seems like the suspect has a gun and shoots at the officer and even hits the officer, sometimes there can be, just depending on the community and the environment. I mean, was the community super supportive of you? I'm not familiar with you guys down there.
I mean, our community was super supportive of me. In all my shootings I've ever been in, up to like 3 years ago, and like they've always been supportive of me. I've never had a questionable shooting, so I can't say how it would be without, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were super supportive. I mean, I was Florida's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. The city of, I was Police Officer of the Year. City of Jacksonville recognized me. State law enforcement. President Barack Obama gave me the Medal of Valor.
I'm guessing you hate that kind of publicity. Like most cops, you're probably like, I do not want to go to any of this.
Yeah, but it's an honor to be just chosen for that kind of stuff. And that's what I always, a lot of people always get into, it's always bad after you get into a shooting. No, it's not. Just make sure it's righteous.
Make sure it's a good shooting, and then you got no doubt in your mind.
Right.
Yeah. So, a lot of people talk about, when they're in officer-involved shootings, there's a lot of material out there and studies and stuff. Do you remember kind of like your world slowing down and kind of just tenths of a second going by as far as remembering, very vividly about what happened?
I don't really. I mean, I think I was on the SWAT team then. I've already been in a shooting where I was involved. I was probably involved in like 3 other shootings where people were shooting around me at the time. And through through a lot of force, through the stress inoculation, I was hearing the shots. I was seeing him. I was able to think. It wasn't anything out of control for me. It was just a steady, I see my sight, break the shot. See my sight, break the shot. Yeah.
Do you remember seeing like you had a good sight picture and like you were actually trying to get back behind your iron sights?
I had my front, because just through training, I know to find my front sight. I didn't have a perfect sight picture, but I had my front sight and my rear sight, in the same zip code, all on the body, and then he gets one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that just seemed to work for me, because I was shooting strong hand only, because I was pushing off the ground trying to get to my feet. I only made it to my knees though.
Okay. In your experience, I mean, I've pulled my taser a few times on people. I've never been a huge fan of it. A lot of cops will say nowadays, just because of the liability behind it, it's more likely to fail you than work. Especially out here in Washington, because it's always raining or cold, so people always have, a hoodie on or something like that.
Right.
Did that surprise you that the taser had failed? Like, or have you been at your point in your career where you're like, yeah, this thing might fail on me?
It surprised me because I've used it before and it worked. But like, I don't know, because if I wear it, I count on it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Is it department policy for you guys to carry them?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I counted on it. I've seen it work I've seen it work with me pulling the trigger. I've seen it work with other people pulling the trigger. It works. I've been tased and it worked on me.
Do you know if both the probes hit him or only one, or?
It never deployed. It never shot.
Did they ever even figure out why it didn't deploy, or?
I did my test before. They just don't. I mean, it's an Xbox controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's electronic. Anything man-made is gonna fail you at some point.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I always tell people is, it should surprise you that it doesn't work, but not shut you down. It's not like one of those things that, all right, well, game's over. This didn't work. It's all right. Get rid of it and let's do something else. Move on to the next.
Yeah. Do you still have faith in the taser?
I don't carry them anymore. No.
So has that forced you? Because, obviously being a firearms instructor myself as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of correlation between how confident you are in what you carry, and as far as, people who use excessive force are more likely to use force. Sometimes it's because they have very low confidence in their tools. Is that something that, you're just like, hey, I'm just going to increase my hands-on defensive tactic skills and not rely on something that's electronic?
Yes, and it just let me down in a big way. So I just don't care. And like my day-to-day work, I'm full-time SWAT. So if I'm not doing a pure SWAT mission, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah.
I am very rarely in a uniform ever.
Do you feel like you've had to increase your defensive tactics and like your hands-on skills with people, after that incident? Do you think maybe you could have controlled them better, or was it just kind of, one of those tense, rapidly evolving situations?
It happened quickly. I mean, I was training MMA stuff. I mean, I like to box. I mean, I'm a hands-on person. Like, I like doing that stuff.
Yeah.
When I wrapped him up, I brought him in close. I was elbowing him and knee striking him, trying to get him to the ground. And I mean, he just produced it from somewhere. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell you where he got it.
Yeah.
I tell you, he was so tight he wouldn't be able to probably punch me real well, which most combatives is built around not taking a big punch. That's why I was pulling him in close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you're pulling him in close, you're now limiting yourself. If he does anything but punch you, you won't see it before it happens. So I kind of think that was a mistake on my part. Like, I should have maybe hit him a couple times, created a little bit of distance.
Yeah, and I know there was 2 people initially, correct?
Yes.
Do you guys ever know where the second guy went? I'm guessing he was eventually identified, or
no? They loss prevention took him into custody.
Okay, I'm guessing he never had any kind of explanation about, hey, I don't know why he was carrying a gun, or.
Oh well, he kind of was hard at first, and they brought, because they were going to charge him with felony murder, and then.
Oh yeah, because you guys probably have that in your state because kind of an association thing.
So things changed real quick, and so now he's like, I didn't know, the same old game to save his life or save his.
Yeah, the same old thing. So I know when I've watched some of your previous discussions about it, some of the stuff you've mentioned about it is, hey, you should have metal sights. Hey, you should be carrying, extra ammo. Or you were carrying a 45 then?
I was carrying a 40.
A 40, okay.
I had a Glock 22. He had a Glock 21.
What are you carrying nowadays?
Glock 17.
Glock 17. Is that just for the ammo capacity? I mean, I know we won't get into the whole debate about 45 and 9 and all that kind of stuff, but is that mainly just for the ammo capacity?
I'm a capacity guy.
Okay, so are you carrying like high capacity mags? You got the +5s on them and all that good stuff.
Yeah. My gun's a +2. My reload's a +5.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Some of our guys have been asking about at the PD about putting mag extensions on them, and one of our county agency, one of their guys just got in a shooting, and he had a bunch of Terran tactical base plates on him that he uses I shoot IDPA with them, and so it's kind of funny he can't get any of that stuff back. So they're going to hold on to it for a couple years till the civil lawsuit's done, or the window of that opportunity has lapsed. And so he's like, oh man, I just lost 3 Terran tactical base plates. That ain't cheap. They're gone now.
No, that's definitely not cheap.
Yeah. So I've been debating on it. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on that or not.
It don't matter.
Yeah. So kind of to switch gears a little bit, what kind of made you want to be a cop, or how'd that all kind of come about? Did you one of those people that you grew up wanting to be a cop, or?
No, definitely not. It was just kind of a calling when I got older. My oldest brother is in law enforcement, and I used to ride with him. And I played sports growing up, and I think it was watching him and the camaraderie around him and his, the beat mate, the guys that he worked around on the beat, and they had like a good team atmosphere.
Yeah.
Go out, have fun, stop crime, and just do. And it was kind of the same atmosphere as I had in sports, so I think that kind of drew me to it.
Did you go to college or anything, or I don't know how it works in Florida? Do you have to have a degree, or is it a state academy, or?
We don't have to, but to work in Jackson, you got to have a 4-year degree. Yeah, I went to college in Missouri. I grew up, in a suburb of Jacksonville in Orange Park, but I went to school in Missouri.
Nice. Where'd you go to school at Missouri?
Missouri Valley College.
I don't know where that's at. I lived in a little town called Knobnoster for what? That's where Whiteman Air Force Base is, where my dad was stationed. Yeah. And my wife's from St. Joseph, Missouri. So,
see, I don't even know that. I didn't even know that was
Knobnoster. It's like 1,500 people there.
Yeah.
Missouri can be a different place.
Yes, it can.
I'm finding stuff out about you right now. I thought we knew each other.
I thought you knew me.
Yeah. Well, you don't even know how to say my last name. So.
I can't pronounce your last name. So after you kind of started your career in law enforcement, I mean, I know you're a full-time SWAT guy now, but have you had any kind of other specialty positions, or has it always kind of been patrol and then SWAT? Patrol
and then SWAT. It was, I got on to I got onto the agency to join the SWAT team. Was pretty much my goal.
Have you guys always
so
had? Have you
when
guys
I got
always?
hired?
Have you always had a SWAT team, or I mean, like a full-time SWAT team?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I got hired on, worked in the courthouse as a bailiff, then went to patrol, and then we just had to do my time on the streets, and then made the SWAT team in 2004.
Okay, so you said have you been full-time since 2004, or?
Well, it's a weird combination. Yes, we're a full-time team because we through like NTOA standards. Now we're full-time, but like back then we trained once a week for 10 hours a day. So if just as long as 25% of your day or your week is to training, like you are a full-time team. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought isn't a standard?
I worked patrol, but I always went to SWAT training every Thursday.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was did they change it recently? I thought it was 2 times a month and like 1 5-day period a year or something to be considered full-time, or
that could probably be it. But
I thought the NTOA.
We do once a week and two 5-day periods a year. So I mean we've always done that, and now we have just taken away our secondary duty. So now if you make the SWAT team, you come to the SWAT office and you are on the SWAT team.
Oh, so tons of time to maintain a high level of training standard. That's for sure.
That's
the
legit.
full-time team. Yeah. So what's kind of the biggest changes you've seen, in your law enforcement career? Obviously, it seems cops are making the news weekly, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. We won't go too much into that, but what have you seen change, and where do you see law enforcement going as a career? Because I know you're kind of, how many more years do you have left?
Probably I got 3 years till my 20.
Okay.
And then we'll see how long I stay after that.
Yeah. And so, what have you seen change as far as like public perception and how policing is conducted, and where do you see it going?
Man, I'll tell you, public perception hasn't changed. There's always been people out there that hate us. But now they're just getting a voice with social media and cell phones, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've always hated us. I mean, man, you got to look at like the 50s and 60s. They were killing cops all, like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of deaths, like way more than there are now. But people don't want to remember that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I saw something on social media today where someone was like, before this happened, we didn't have a war on police, and I was like, no, it's kind of, if you can think before social media, it's kind of always been the same. It's just now, like you're saying, it's
you need
more
to get it
prevalent.
where, like, the 80s, the 70s brought it, and then the 80s were good, and the 90s were great. You know what I mean? Well, late 80s, early 90s had crack hit, so that's when everything got real violent, and then that's when they wanted the police to get real. You know what I mean? Like, y'all got to stop this. So then you started the street crimes and all that stuff. The drug game changed then. That's, watch like old movies of like the 60s. You used to go buy like Quaaludes in the bar or something. Like, hey man, you got any ludes? You know what I mean? And like,
yeah,
that's how. And then there was no such thing as a trap house. There was no such thing as people protecting their loads with AK-40. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The narcotics games changed. So we had to evolve with it, because I mean they got violent. We had to get violent with it. But I mean, if you like the bombings that used to happen in the 60s were insane. Like, blowing up police cars, blowing up police. Like, that's the stuff that people forget. Like, oh well, no, it's never been like it. It was way worse in the 60s for police than it is now.
Do you think it's you think we're maybe going to go to a more quote unquote gentler police force, and then crime will rise up again or what have you, and then it will force us or force society maybe to look back and say, hey, cops, do your thing? Or
man, I think cops are going to do their thing no matter what. Like all these old time policemen, they like to say that, hey, we're not back in my day.
That's the classic start of the conversation.
Yeah. There was pussies back in their day. They may have been the pussy back in their day, but they're not doing the job anymore, so now they can talk the big stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think now our culture is a little weaker. Like, there are policemen now that have never been in a fist fight.
Yeah.
Is that their fault? No. It's, if you got into a fight at school, you were suspended from school no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're teaching people not to be in a fist fight, and I get that. And there's some that have, and there's some that haven't, but it's not probably their fault. And then, get them in a fight, see how they act.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things. It's not the end of the world. And like, they're like, oh, police. It's to me, there's always been people who hate you. Now people are getting a voice, and that voice is hitting mainstream media, but it's not any worse than it was. Like some of the old politicians that hate you and talk trash about the police. Well, they were peace, love, and happiness hating you in the 60s.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an interesting
they're
point.
They're just older now. They hate you just the same. They're just older.
Yeah, I really never thought about the social media piece. That is true, because that's been so prevalent the past, really the past decade, really a lot the past 5-6 years. And I feel like, yeah, that does make sense, that people just have more of a voice as far as being heard and stuff being filmed, to where, you see a video of a cop kneeing some guy is trying to arrest, and it makes the news. Whereas, hey, cops been kneeing people resisting arrest for 100 years. So it's not anything new. It's just society seeing it, and for some people it makes them uncomfortable. And I actually was at a recruiting thing yesterday for my police department up at a local college here, and it was kind of interesting to talk to a couple of the criminal justice professors that were hosting it, because that's kind of one of the biggest disconnects, I think, is between society and law enforcement. Is people just don't understand, criminal procedures. They don't understand the criminal justice system or case law or how it essentially works. People just see something on social media and they go, "Wow, violence is bad." And I mean, our DT instructor, and I kind of really like this saying, but no use of force looks good. It always looks bad. Doesn't matter if you use the most best takedown technique and you handcuff the guy in 3 seconds. If someone's filming it, it looks bad. I mean, use of force just looks bad. And
you're right. Well, because people don't want to see death. Like it's a pure lawful shooting, but people don't want to see it. So then they act emotional, because it makes them feel weird.
Yeah.
So then they react off emotion, not what happened or that's just the nature of it,
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it bad or wrong, but people need to sit back and look at people just act off emotion, which you should feel weird watching somebody get shot and die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're human, it should be kind of like, whoa. I mean, it should definitely, you definitely shouldn't see a video on Facebook and be like, oh, cool. It should always concern you. So.
Right. A lot of people get on to the police about stuff when they should really, they're enforcing, it might be a stupid law. Like I always get to the NYPD guys who killed the guy and choked him.
Yeah.
But he had a heart attack. You know what I mean? But they don't like to listen to the facts afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you watch the video and you see how the guy, he was a very large guy, and you see that, and from a medical perspective, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's not healthy. And if you induce any kind of stress, he could have been in an airplane that was getting ready to make a rough landing and have a heart attack.
Can one of you talk on that? Because I know what you're talking about, but for people that maybe not.
They confronted the guy for selling single cigarettes, and it's like a task force that does it, and for me, it's like that law. Do you think the police got involved in their careers so they can go bust the guy who's selling single cigarettes?
No.
No, not at all. But somebody put that task force together and made these guys go do this. So they're blaming the police. How about you look at the lawmaker who made it so illegal to sell single cigarettes that you now have a task force? Or the lawmaker that says you can't drink a 2-liter in the city of New York City.
Yeah, because of sugar tax and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
We just enforce the law. You can't put it on us. Could it have been handled a little differently? Yeah, maybe. I don't judge that. Those dudes went out to do a job. He fought. He was going to jail. That was it. And and nobody likes to watch people die in front of them. Those officers didn't go out and say, I'm going to go kill this dude for selling his damn single cigarettes.
Yeah, they could care less.
But it was a job. Hey, you want to be on this task force? It'll make you so you can move your career along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to be on that task force. I get to wear jeans and shorts, and you know what I mean. Yeah, I'd rather not be in a uniform. Yes, but they don't look at these things of why were they there in the first place.
Yeah, I think that definitely is an interesting point as far as a lot of times people don't understand. We can even bring up, that just happened in Philadelphia, right? The 2 African Americans that were arrested for trespassing and things like that. I mean, people don't understand, hey, you have a trespassing law for a reason. If a business calls law enforcement and says, we want them removed, we're going to arrive and remove them. They were asked multiple times to just get up and leave. A supervisor was even called on scene. It's like, hey, get mad at Starbucks. Don't get mad at us. Credit on Starbucks for at least taking some accountability. But it's like these guys are just doing their job. Like we, arrest people for trespassing all the time because we have.
That's what needs to happen with law enforcement. How that chief of police in Philadelphia handled that. He handled it that night with a statement on Facebook or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he made
on the social media. Yep. They didn't do anything wrong. This is how we have as law enforcement as a whole, we have a horrible public relations. You know what I mean?
Oh, horrible.
Like, hey, because we want the facts to come out. Hey, we'll talk about this when the facts come out, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the chief. I mean, he did a Facebook live stream. He stated it perfectly. Yeah. It's no different than, hey, if you are inside your house and you see a guy standing on your front lawn at 2 a.m. and you want the cops to come contact him and get him off your lawn. I mean, it's the same principle. Right. The guy does not. He's trespassing on your property. He needs to get off your yard.
They got out ahead of it. You're going to get tried in the press, so you need to get out ahead of it. And that's what, to me, administrators and things like that, those are the classes they need to be taking. I get taking like an active shooter course and all that, but the active shooter thing's going to fix itself if you just put a bunch of good policemen in there and let them do their job.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot more, and I don't know if your department does it. Ours is slowly starting to do it more, but there's a couple departments that have really good social media pages as far as outreach to the community. I mean, posting, pictures of suspects from, local property crimes. I mean, all that kind of stuff I think helps show the community, hey, we're here with you. We're here trying to protect you. Here's people we're looking for. I mean, our department does a really good job about posting a lot of photos of suspects, and we get a lot of good information.
Oh, we get a lot of help. Oh, yeah. That stuff, but really and it just makes it look like we're hiding something when we're never hiding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a super tough line for the transparency on far as like officer involved shootings or these weird trespassing stuff that makes the news. It's kind of like how much information can you give up? And in this case with the trespassing thing, it's like you can give up everything. Like it's not that big of a deal.
I mean, that's one thing is in our especially in the officer involved shooting or something like that. They're pretty quick on getting out a picture of the gun that the suspect had. Like, you know what I mean? So there's not that he didn't have a gun thing.
Yeah.
So our agency is actually very good at just getting a picture of it and being like, no, this is what he had. We're not going to talk about, but yes, there was a gun there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here's a picture of it. We're not going to talk about the details of it.
Right. I can't see. And so as police and as a whole, we are getting better at it. But I think there's still a lot more to move forward.
Yeah,
keep going.
It might have been one of those things where we're behind the ball on it. Social media became so prominent 10 years ago, and society's moved so fast with it, and then law enforcement just mainly you got older administrators and all that kind of stuff.
So they don't know anything about how powerful it is.
They're not as tech savvy, so they don't really understand it. Yeah, that's a good point. Transition over here. So let's talk some of the SWAT piece. Have you listened to Bill Blowers' podcast he just did?
I have not heard of his new one.
Yeah, he just did it with another cop podcast. It's called Street Warrior Radio. I listened to it yesterday when I was driving up to that recruiting event. Just in some of this stuff, if you can't discuss like specific tactics, that's fine. But I know you've seen a lot of stuff Blowers posts. He posted that one about doing dynamic entries. When it's applicable for retrieving evidence and things like that. What's your take on dynamic entries for retrieving evidence or for SWAT teams? Do you guys maintain a high standard for dynamic entries or?
Well, so I'm friends with Bill. Me and Bill are friends.
Yeah.
So after posted on his thing. We talked. It's just different terminology. So we, as a team, we still go what some people might call dynamic, but I don't call it dynamic. I call it deliberate. But like deliberate back in the day is like, you know, a shield with a camera and a mirror and all that. We don't go that slow, but we're not just diving into rooms. You know, I don't believe in full dynamic. We believe in taking as much of the structure from the outside as we can and locking stuff down. And we've been doing it now for almost 10 years now, and we're not losing any dope. We're not losing any evidence. So it's looking at each case, you know, and that's only for like drugs. You know, some people will do like you know, we're going to go serve this search warrant for stolen motorcycle parts, and just because SWAT's doing it, they're going to go hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
When you're like, why would you go hard? Just do a surrounding call out on that. You can't flush motorcycle parts. You know what I mean? You can't destroy it. You got to look at what the evidence that you're trying to, you know, what are you going to do with it? You can't do anything with it. Like, you know, some people like with a wanted subject inside a house, you know, why push dynamic on a wanted person? He can't cut himself up and disappear in a house. Take your time, use the tactics to get him out.
So you guys do more. So it sounds like, a difference in just terminology. You're doing more of kind of like a hybrid almost of deliberate and surrounding call out. Like you guys are obviously doing, you know, limited entry and still doing some. Okay.
We're still pushing. I mean, we still, you know, you still have the foundation of CQB of speed, surprise, and violence. That still all has to happen. But now it's just you're doing it a little bit controlled, and you're meeting somebody on your own terms, not just crashing into them as you're going into a door. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's something that I know from, you know, me and Mike, you know, being in the military too. It seems it was a weird shift. You know, I was in the infantry, so coming out, you know, from doing deployments and stuff into law enforcement, it was kind of different seeing how, you know, sometimes going, you know, speed, surprise, violence of action, all that stuff's good. But in law enforcement, it's almost, you want to work a little bit backwards. You know, you want to make sure they know you're the police, right? You don't want them to have the argument of, I thought he was breaking into my house, and all those dumb arguments end up becoming case law somehow. So it was kind of like a shift in tactics as far as my mind, because coming from the infantry, it's like, yeah, dude, just kick this door down, run in there.
To kill him, it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Right. Like, let's just get in there. Let's just throw some bangs, and that'll freak them out enough. They'll be in the corner of the room shivering. But I mean, these aren't and
that's what
compounds in Afghanistan with guys in man jammas. So
we always talk about like kind of like the start of the SWAT teams. Like, you know, people will argue like, you know, we had a SWAT team first, but LAPD is pretty much the grandfathers of SWAT. Like any SWAT team probably would mimic their tactics off of LAPD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were designed, when they first came out, they were just for the barricaded subjects. They weren't really doing anything, you know, early 80s. So in 1984 Olympics changed domestic law enforcement tactics. So the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles is still the only city municipality to ever handle all security for an Olympics.
Which is crazy to think about, because that's a lot.
They told the FBI to screw off. They told, you know what I mean? They told everybody, like, we got this. And they had SWAT, and they sent guys to Israel. They sent the SAS. They developed everything. You know, these hostage rescue tactics, you know, counterterrorism tactics, all this stuff. So they're spooled up, ready to go. You know?
Yeah.
Well, after the Olympics, let's say 1986 is probably when crack hit California real big. They started getting, hey, here it is. You know, I need you to hit this drug house or this building or whatever it is, but it's fortified. It has this. There's armed people in it, and they're like, hey, we got a tactic for that, right? I mean, so that's where like dynamic entry started on dope warrants. Was pretty much they were doing hostage rescue on dope. And that's how it started, and no one really sat back and started looking at it. Even special operations overseas stopped and looked at, like, hey, why are we pushing so hard when we're going after a person? You know,
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
right. Then we're going to surround it. We're going to work it out. They still have out, like, it's different surrounding a house in the middle of the United States. I mean, it's not like the neighbors are going to start fighting or the boards. But it's still, you got to look at what's happening, what you're doing, and what risk you're willing to hang it out there. Hostage rescue, I'm going to push a little more because that's the mission.
Yeah, you're trying to rescue somebody. Right.
And I get it. I mean, pushing hard is fun. It's awesome when you're done. But, I don't want to bury a brother for
dope,
a sack of cocaine. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's not worth it to me. And I'm not saying that we're not going to die doing the tactic that we do. It's all dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I try to always explain to people.
To me, it's just a tick safer. If it's 5% safer, why not do it? If we're not losing evidence.
Yeah, it's all about the mitigation of risk, and I think that's one of the things that's hard to relay to people. Hey, you can't absolve the risk in this job in anything you do, whether it's patrol or SWAT or anything. All you can do is all you can do is mitigate it. And yeah, that's true. I mean, every tick percentage you can increase your chance to change the outcome of it. I mean, you definitely got to do it. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I really enjoyed Bill's post on that, as well as his hostage rescue post. But they both kind of, it's nice because, we'll kind of caveat into your training company here in a sec, but it's hard for law enforcement. I don't know how you guys' state agency is, but our state agency going through the academy, there's just some continuity issues as far as what's being taught and stuff like that. And so it's nice having a trainer like Bill that runs his own company because, it's good quality training. It's covering things like case law, current stuff, current TTPs for teams and stuff that are actually going to be applicable. Whereas, there can be some outside trainers that I would say from a law enforcement perspective just aren't as well going to because they're not bringing that law enforcement dynamic or that, case law and stuff that's more relevant for, I guess, cops, you could say. There seems to be a lot of training companies out there. They provide great training, for civilians for sure, but for law enforcement, I think some of them I recommend people not to go to just because you're not going to get that law enforcement perspective from it, and that could, hurt you in the long run. You try to use that kind of stuff out in the real world.
Right.
So what kind of made you want to start the training company? I mean, all that stuff. How long has it been around?
So my training company, I probably started 8 years ago. I believe 8 years ago. And it was after my shooting. I was going around to a lot of different, SWAT agencies and SWAT conferences and just different and speaking on my shooting and just doing a debrief. And that's when I came to realize that not all police agencies are trained the same.
Yeah.
They're not given some of the right tools. And that's when I was like, hey, I have been blessed with being on the team that I'm on and the trainers that I've been around and the things that I get to learn. And, I've had some of those classes, like you're saying, from somewhere like military use, like this was great stuff, but I can't use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or some different things. So to me, we've developed a program from all this stuff, taking pieces from everything and moved it into, this is what we do in law enforcement. So that's our bread and butter. And hopefully we're getting good information, great tactics, high standards pushed out to law enforcement.
So is your target mainly law enforcement or is it civilian too, or?
Civilian also. This is what I always tell cops too. People are like, well, how do you train civilians? I was like, well, first off, this is America, and you need to be teaching these guys.
Yeah.
But you need to if you see a law enforcement or a civilian at a class that you're taking, you need to shake their hand, because without them purchasing slots to train, you would not have the trainers out there. There's no agencies. There's not enough. I hate to sound but there's not enough money coming from law enforcement to sustain somebody in a company. It's just not worth
Yeah,
their time.
that's
The
true.
civilian market is keeping instructors eating so they can keep spreading the word to the people. And so you need to really appreciate civilians that at least are serious enough to really go out and train. Because, I mean, if you see a civilian in a class, that's not your average Joe. Like,
Yeah, he's spending his own money on ammo and the range.
You got to think about, like, so it's funny, like, you know, it's $550 for a weekend class. Typically, is like the industry standard. They're normally traveling. They probably have to take 1 or 2 days off of work on one end of the training course. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They got to pay for a hotel, and then they got to pay for ammo. They're out about $2,500 to $3,000 for a weekend.
Yeah, that's a week in Maui.
Right, and that's the pattern. Like, you know, law enforcement's like, oh shit, the department made me go on my off days. I couldn't. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, they gave me ammo. I'm like, man, come on, man. Like, you need to put this stuff in perspective of what people are doing and appreciate them.
So is this something like that you plan on taking full time when you retire, or you don't really know where this is going to go yet? I mean, because I know you've obviously have already started to build, you know, reputation as an instructor, all that kind of stuff. You know, I know you were just at the ranch for the synopsis thing that they had a couple weeks ago. I mean, is this something you plan on doing full time when you retire, or?
I hope so. You know, if it spools into that, I mean, I hope that no matter what I do, I'll still train doing something.
It's just kind of just in your blood. You just gotta.
I like it, and I like getting out there, and I like meeting. But I truly think that we have a good program that fits a lot of different needs, and I feel like I'm a pretty good coach, and I can put the information into people a way that they understand it. So
how have you balanced, you know, running a company and still being, you know, on the law enforcement side of things? Like, is it super hectic with family life, or, you know, you only dedicate certain time to it a day, or?
And there's not enough time in a day. But
that's true.
You need like 48-hour days to make a company work, you know, no matter what scale it is. But
I go to work. I got 3 boys. They're all in sports. I coach their sports. You know what I mean? I'm training. I'm gone a lot. I think I'm going right now, like on, you know, 16 days without a day off. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just basically you just got to grind through it.
You better hustle.
Yeah. Mike, you know all about that.
Yeah, it just never stops. I'm not in law enforcement, but I can imagine on top of running a business, a training company, and then, you know, doing your day-to-day job. It's like when I was in the military and special ops, like trying to start this company up. It was like I had no fucking time to breathe. It sucked.
Right.
It was worth it.
I mean, you got to make it just. I mean, only lottery winners ever say it was easy to become rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they blow their money on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So are you the only instructor? Do you have some some guest instructors from the SWAT team, or?
The only true instructor I have is my partner, Michael Hyde. He was a mentor of me as I came up. Like, he taught me how to shoot, but we've shot together for years and years. And we've kind of developed curriculum together. And
you guys got a pretty good working dynamic, obviously.
Yes. And if we can, like, he'll go somewhere. We'll always have an AI with us, but that's kind of just a safety guy or something like, you know, but typically it's me and Mike somewhere. We're always together. I wouldn't say always, but 95% of the time, if you sign up for a Reston Group class, you'll have me and Mike.
Well, what kind of course are you guys covering? Just everything? If you want to kind of maybe overview some of the courses you're teaching right now.
All firearms, you know, pistol, rifle stuff, CQB, and just kind of whatever you want to do. But our bread and butter is just CQB, room clearing, and shooting.
Do you guys have any big future plans for anything you want to drop right now? Like, you guys going to teach any precision shooting stuff, shotgun stuff, or anything else down the pipeline?
Just go to RestonGroupTraining.com and look at our schedule. We're always somewhere. Look us up if you're in the area. Let's do some shooting. If you're interested in bringing us out, reach out to me and we'll talk about hosting a course.
Yeah, so people can find you at that website as well as on social media, correct? On Facebook or Instagram. Where are you primarily on?
Facebook and Instagram is you can contact me there. You can contact me on my website too. It's all. I'm good about getting back to people.
Awesome.
All right, couple little last rando questions for you, Jared. So, red dots on pistols for patrol. What's your stance on that? I know you started to shoot a Delta point, just kind of, obviously that's been a hot topic in law enforcement.
Like you've been stalking him or something.
Yeah, well, I follow his page.
2018 is my year of the red dot, and why I've done that, I've shot them in the past, and I like them, and I think it's applicable. But to me, I didn't ever want to show up to a class like a red dot pistol and like nobody have it on the line.
Yeah.
So then well, you shoot like that because you have a, you know what I mean? So I always shoot my irons and, it's just dependent on do I think it's a good advantage? Yes, I do. I think it helps a lot of people. And I think that we've hit the technology where it's getting more and more dependable. I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, with batteries, and things like that, it just wasn't where it should be for duty use.
Yeah, I've been testing a Delta Point for about 5 months, and we're probably about ready to start implementing them into the patrol guys. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. People go back and forth on it. People talk about lighting conditions and all that stuff, and I kind of look at it the same way. From the military perspective, when they first switched to optics and red dots, there's a lot of naysayers like iron sights only, these will fail in combat, and then they don't fail. So, I just feel like maybe that's just kind of the typical law enforcement response to change as far as the red dots come in. But it seems like you mentioned, the technology is just getting so much better. It's going to be interesting to see every year what companies are releasing because they're just getting better and better as far as battery life and quality. I've seen personally just my 25-yard shot group just get so much cleaner, and I'm a huge advocate for it for law enforcement just because just a total overall sight picture. So if I've made the decision to fire or if I'm looking through that red dot, you can still have really great situational awareness on the threat you're pointed at. Whereas when you're using irons at 25, the entire dude's gone. You can't see anything he's doing with his hands or anything like that. So I think there's definitely some benefits to it.
It's going to come down to money.
Yeah. Oh, that's for every agency. That's always the problem is money.
And so as an agency, you spend $450 on a Glock, and then you got to spend $600 on an optic. You know what I mean? Or $400. You got to double the price. They're like, nah, let's not get crazy.
Yeah, I've been seeing. I've been seeing them more and more. Actually, was up at the academy in December to watch one of our guys shoot, and there was someone in his class that was actually from Bill's agency that was carrying a red dot. And so, but yeah, that's all personally bought, and they have to manage the upkeep of it and stuff like that. My biggest fear, like most instructors' fears would be, is you don't want someone to get it that's going to be super lazy, or they're that guy that pushes out when they have to use it and they haven't checked their battery in 6 months and there's no battery there.
That or just you got to limit what you can you don't want like some Tasco. Like I got this one at the gun show. They say it's made in the same factory as a Trijicon. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And that's a hard thing from an instructor standpoint. We have all the same optics on our patrol rifles, but for the red dot, people are gonna have to buy them themselves, but they have to be approved by a firearms instructor. But
right.
The companies out there, what worries me from an instructing standpoint is, being on the firing line and there being like 8 different styles of optics. Not that they'd all be bad or anything, but just that you're like, oh man, people got different MOA dots on them. And so that piece should be interesting. I think it will be kind of interesting in the next 10 years to see if law enforcement's going to switch that a lot. Because I feel like a lot of people
it's going to go.
Interested in
there's
it.
No doubt about it. It's going to, like teaching in that symposium last week in Texas. That was a great event, but I'm gonna say that there were so many people there with red dots. Like that was the most red dots I've ever seen on a pistols in any class. And because those were people who, they like to train. They like, if you like to do it, and you're good at it, typically you're going to have a red dot on your pistol.
Yeah, you're going to spend the money on it. So I got some leadership questions. Have you listened to any of our other podcasts? We'll blank this out if you say no.
Yeah, no, I have.
So I did one with Mike. It was probably like our second or third one. I'm huge on leadership. It's just something that I enjoy reading a lot of books on leadership and stuff like that. And leadership from the military and law enforcement, just kind of interesting. So what are some leadership stuff that you've learned throughout your career? Like what's some good leadership stuff you've seen? What's some bad? What's some stuff you try to emulate or some characteristics you try to emulate?
For me, is a good leader is someone has a good heart and good goals and a good ethos, and living up, not trying to be what you think someone above you wants you to be, but you be you and be true to your men. And that to me is a good leader. Like, too many people want to get promoted and like, well, what's the guy above me? What is he like? Well, I'll be him instead of being me and still getting promoted. Like most of the administration in my department that I respect got there their way. They didn't get there the fast way. They didn't get, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they stayed true to themselves while rising through the ranks. Right.
They didn't diminish or anything. They didn't, not even sell out, but they didn't go the way that, they went against the grain, I guess you could say.
Do you think that leadership is something that's often overlooked in law enforcement? Because me personally, I just feel, at least out here, it's something that, it's rarely talked about, or I kind of make fun of. I've made a few of my buddies recently that have had to go into some, mandatory leadership stuff, and, it's ran by the FBI and stuff. And so I give them crap because, they couldn't even convict Hillary. But so I just give them crap on stuff like that. So, I mean, do you think it's something that's overlooked a lot by law enforcement?
Well, yes, I think that in law enforcement, rank gives you leadership, which isn't necessarily true. I think the way they test to get supervisors and things like that, there's no leadership real quality, especially down here. There is no, the leadership aspect of it doesn't pay any penance in what you're doing. Like if you want to be a sergeant, you pass a test and you do.
Boom,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you get the stripes. Yeah.
You don't. Your what you've done with your career doesn't give you any points. Like, so you're the same as some dude who just sat back and did nothing his whole career. You know what I mean? And that's
you take the test, you score higher, boom,
right,
promoted.
Like to me, on my team, when they picked me to be an assistant team leader, that's peer based, and that was more of an honor than ever if I ever passed a test and became a sergeant.
Yeah,
because I earned that through what the fellas think of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know who has the original quote. Who knows nowadays? But one of the things I like a leadership thing is you don't get to decide if you're a leader. Like, the dudes underneath you decide if you're a leader or not. And that's something I think that's lost a lot on in our career field, is just people think just because you got, Bill used a good example yesterday, stars and galaxies on your collar, that you're a leader. It's really not true.
Right. You're exactly right.
Cool. Well, Jared.
Sorry to talk to you to death, Jared. What
What
was that? 2 hours?
I didn't get a fucking word in. I'm usually talking all the time.
Mike was like, "We're doing a podcast with Jared." I'm like, "I'm gonna write a boatload of questions."
Yeah. So, I want to thank you for coming on. It's what we're trying to do with this podcast is a little bit different than what you see with our, the main company. Trying to open up questions. Like, we had one about, we had a topic of conversation on the last one with a dude from Barrel and Hatchet Training Group about, fundraisers and how people aren't really aware of what they're doing when they're raising money, but at the same time throwing it in their company and stuff like that. So we're trying to do just something a little bit different and have a little bit more serious, and then some, light conversation at the same time. But I appreciate the time that you've given us and given your perspective on the law enforcement and your, career as a whole.
No problem, guys.
Yep. Again, so anybody listen to this podcast can go check out Jared's company, Reston Group, at Reston Group on Instagram, Facebook, and then his website as well.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
again,
Be
man.
safe.
Later.